For 300 years, the Galactic Empire ruled the stars. No enemy had ever defeated it. Entire civilizations disappeared the moment they resisted. Rebel worlds burned. Alien kings bowed before imperial fleets stretching across entire solar systems. The Empire had one law: obey or vanish. And nobody was strong enough to challenge them. Nobody. Until they reached Earth. The human colony of Vega 9 was small. A mining world near the outer edge of explored space. Quiet. Poor. Forgotten by most of humanity. Which made it the perfect target. At least, that's what the Empire believed. Above Vega 9, a gigantic Imperial battleship emerged from hyperspace like a dark mountain. Its shadow covered half the colony. Sirens screamed across the settlement. Families ran through dusty streets while giant cannons aimed downward from orbit. Inside the colony command center, Governor Elias Kane stared at the screen in disbelief. An Imperial officer appeared. Tall, pale, wearing black and gold armor. Commander Draven of the Galactic Empire. His voice was calm, cold. By decree of Emperor Valin, this colony now belongs to the Empire. Kane clenched his fists. Vega 9 is independent human territory. Draven didn't even blink. Not anymore. Behind him, massive Imperial warships filled the stars. The message was simple. Surrender. Or die. On Earth. The emergency transmission reached the United Systems Council within minutes. Leaders argued instantly. We can't fight the Empire. Their fleets outnumber ours. If we resist, they'll attack Earth itself. Fear spread across the chamber. Because everyone knew the stories. The Empire had never lost a war. Never. Then the chamber doors opened. And silence fell. A man in a dark military coat entered slowly. General Marcus Hale. Commander of Earth Defense Forces. Unlike the politicians, Hale looked completely calm. He walked to the center hologram showing Vega 9 under Imperial blockade. Then asked one question. How many civilians are still planetside? An officer answered quietly. Approximately 2 million. Hale nodded once. Then looked toward the council leaders. Prepare evacuation fleets. One council member snapped. Evacuation? We should negotiate. Hale's eyes turned cold. The Empire doesn't negotiate. He pointed toward the screen. They conquer. Silence. Then he added quietly. And they just made a mistake. Back on Vega 9. Commander Draven descended into the colony personally. Imperial soldiers marched through the streets while terrified civilians watched from windows. No resistance. No soldiers. No defense lines. Draven smirked slightly. Humans were weaker than he expected. Then one of his officers approached. Commander, we've detected unauthorized ships entering orbit. Draven frowned. Human reinforcements. The officer checked again. Confusion spread across his face. No. Pause. Only one ship. Draven almost laughed. One ship? Against an Imperial fleet? Idiots. Above Vega 9. A single black human warship emerged from hyperspace. Small compared to the massive Imperial fleet surrounding the planet. No fleet escort. No visible weapons. Just one silent ship floating in darkness. Imperial officers began laughing across comm channels. Draven smiled coldly. Destroy it. 3 Imperial cruisers turned toward the human vessel. Weapons charged. Then the black ship moved. Fast. Too fast. Before anyone could react. Blue light flashed across space. One Imperial cruiser exploded instantly. Then another. Then the third split in half. Silence. Absolute silence. Draven stared at the screen in shock. One ship. 3 cruisers destroyed in seconds. Impossible. Then a transmission appeared from the human vessel. A man's face filled the screen. General Marcus Hale. His expression was emotionless. Commander Draven. Pause. Leave human territory now. Draven recovered quickly. You threaten the Galactic Empire with one ship. Hale looked directly into his eyes and answered calmly, "No." Behind the black warship, space suddenly tore open. Hundreds of human battleships emerged from hyperspace. Then thousands more. An endless wall of black steel filling the stars. Hale's voice turned colder. "I'm threatening you with humanity." The stars above Vega 9 disappeared behind human warships. Thousands of black battleships surrounded the Imperial fleet from every direction. Blue engine lights burned across the darkness like an army of cold stars. For the first time in decades, an Imperial commander looked nervous. Commander Draven stared at the tactical display. Impossible. The Empire's spies had always described humanity as divided, weak, and politically unstable. But this fleet, this was not weakness. This was preparation. On the bridge of the human flagship Aegis, General Marcus Hale stood calmly with his hands behind his back. Officers moved quickly around him. Target locks, fleet formations, attack routes. Everything was perfectly organized. An officer spoke quietly. "Imperial fleet awaiting orders." Hale looked toward Vega 9 below, at the civilians trapped under enemy occupation. Then gave the command, "Remove them." The human fleet attacked instantly. No speeches, no warnings, just war. Blue plasma fire erupted across space as human ships charged directly into Imperial lines. Explosions lit the darkness around Vega 9 like a storm of fire. Imperial cruisers fired back furiously. But the humans moved differently. Faster, smarter. Entire squadrons attacked together with perfect coordination. Human destroyers slipped between larger Imperial ships and struck weak points with deadly precision. Within minutes, the Empire started losing ships. Commander Draven slammed his fist against the command console. "Focus fire on the flagship." Dozens of Imperial cannons turned toward the Aegis. Massive energy beams crossed space and hit nothing. The human flagship vanished. Imperial officers froze. Then alarms screamed. "Human flagship behind us." Draven spun around. The Aegis had somehow jumped across the battlefield instantly. Before anyone could react, the black flagship fired. A gigantic blue beam pierced straight through an Imperial carrier. The massive ship exploded into burning debris. Shock spread through the Imperial fleet. The humans possessed technology the Empire had never seen before. Down on Vega 9. Civilians watched the battle from shelters beneath the colony. Children stared through windows as burning Imperial ships fell from orbit like meteors. For the first time, the Empire looked vulnerable. Back in orbit, Draven realized the truth too late. Humanity had hidden its strength from the galaxy. And now the Empire had walked directly into a trap. "Retreat formation," he shouted. But the human fleet closed around them like wolves. Escape routes vanished one by one. General Hale finally opened a direct transmission. Draven appeared furious. "You think this victory matters?" He pointed toward the stars. "The Empire controls thousands of worlds." Hale remained calm. "Then you should have stayed on your side of the galaxy." Draven sneered. "The Emperor will crush humanity." For the first time, Hale smiled slightly. Not confidently. Dangerously. "Tell your Emperor something for me." Silence filled both bridges. Then Hale leaned closer to the screen. "Humanity doesn't surrender." Seconds later, the human fleet unleashed its full firepower. Hundreds of Imperial ships exploded across orbit simultaneously. The remaining enemy vessels broke formation in panic. Commander Draven watched his fleet collapse around him. The impossible was happening. The Galactic Empire, the empire that had never lost a war, was being defeated by humans. Far away on the Imperial capital world, Emperor Valen received the battle reports in silence. Burning fleets, destroyed carriers, retreating survivors. At first he thought the data was false. Then another message arrived. Vega 9 lost. The throne room fell completely silent. One advisor whispered carefully, "Your Majesty, humanity may be stronger than expected." Valen slowly stood from his throne. Tall, Ancient. Terrifying. His eyes hardened with fury. Prepare the Imperial Armada. Millions of soldiers across the Empire received mobilization orders instantly. The largest fleet in galactic history began gathering. Because the Emperor had decided something simple. Humanity would not be conquered. Humanity would be erased. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The Galactic Empire lost a battle. Entire worlds refused to believe it. For centuries, the Empire had crushed every enemy in its path. Alien alliances, rebel armies, even machine civilizations had fallen before Imperial fleets. But now, a single human defense force had destroyed an Imperial armada at Vega 9. And people everywhere began asking the same question. Who are the humans? On the Imperial capital world of Draconis, Emperor Valin stood before a massive hologram of the galaxy. Red lights marked human-controlled systems near the outer rim. Small territory, tiny compared to the Empire. But now those systems had become dangerous. An Imperial admiral bowed carefully. Your Majesty, the human defense fleet is advancing toward nearby Imperial sectors. Valin's eyes narrowed. Advancing. The admiral nodded nervously. They are attacking our border stations. The throne room fell silent. Because no species had ever dared invade Imperial space before. Ever. Meanwhile, inside the human flagship Aegis, General Marcus Hale studied battle reports calmly. Unlike the Empire, humanity wasn't celebrating. Human commanders already understood something terrifying. Vega 9 had only been the beginning. The real war was coming now. And it would be brutal. An officer approached quickly. General, Imperial fleets are mobilizing across 6 sectors. Hale nodded slightly. Exactly as expected. Another officer looked worried. Their numbers are overwhelming. Hale looked toward the stars outside the bridge window. Numbers don't win wars. Pause. Strategy does. Suddenly, emergency alarms exploded across the bridge. Distress signal from Colony Epsilon 3. A damaged transmission appeared on screen. Smoke. Fire. Screaming civilians. Imperial soldiers marched through burning streets while explosions shook the city behind them. A terrified woman cried into the camera. Please, someone help us. Then the signal cut. Silence filled the bridge. One officer whispered. They attacked civilians. Hale's expression darkened instantly. Cold anger spread across the room. Because humanity had one rule. Warships were targets. Children were not. Hale turned toward his fleet commanders. Prepare assault groups. An officer blinked. Sir. Hale's voice became ice. We're taking the fight to the Empire. Hours later, human fleets jumped directly into Imperial territory for the first time in history. Fast attack cruisers struck military shipyards. Stealth bombers destroyed supply depots. Hidden human agents sabotaged defense grids across multiple systems. The Empire suddenly found itself under attack everywhere. And humanity fought differently than any species before them. Smaller fleets. Precise strikes. Disappear before retaliation. Like ghosts. Inside the Imperial Command Station above Epsilon 3, Commander Draven watched the colony burn below with satisfaction. He had survived Vega 9 barely. Now he wanted revenge. An officer suddenly shouted. Unknown contacts entering orbit. Draven frowned. Imperial reinforcements. Then the tactical display turned blue. Human ships. Hundreds of them. Draven's eyes widened. How did they get here so fast? No answer came. Then the station lights died. Darkness swallowed the bridge. Panic spread instantly. Power failure. Weapons offline. Defense systems not responding. Draven realized the truth too late. The humans had infiltrated the station already. A voice echoed through the dark command center. Calm. Cold. Commander Draven. Emergency lights flickered on. Human soldiers stood everywhere. Black armor. Glowing visors. Silent rifles aimed directly at the Imperial officers. At their center stood General Hale. Draven slowly reached for his weapon. Hale shook his head slightly. Don't. Draven glared at him. You think killing me changes anything? Hale stepped closer. No. His eyes hardened. But saving your prisoners does. Behind Hale, Imperial prison doors opened. Terrified human civilians ran free. Draven finally understood. The humans hadn't come for revenge. They had come for their people. And that made them even more dangerous. Far away on Draconis, Emperor Valen watched the disaster unfold live. Human fleets attacking Imperial space. Imperial stations falling. Colonies liberated. For the first time in centuries, the Empire was losing control. Valen slowly stood from his throne. His voice shook with fury. Bring me the planet killers. And suddenly, the galaxy moved one step closer to total war. The galaxy had many terrifying weapons. But nothing compared to the planet killers. Ancient Imperial superweapons built centuries ago during the Empire's bloodiest wars. Each one was large enough to cover a city and powerful enough to erase an entire world in a single shot. Most believed they were myths. Until now. Deep inside the Imperial shipyards of Draconis, massive steel doors opened slowly. Darkness shook as gigantic machines awakened after decades of silence. One by one, 3 planet killers powered online. Their crimson cores lit the shipyard like burning suns. Imperial workers watched nervously from control towers. Even they feared these weapons. Because the planet killers did not just destroy enemies. They erased civilizations. Inside the Imperial throne room, Emperor Valen stared at the holographic image of Earth. Small, blue, fragile-looking. An admiral spoke carefully. Your Majesty, if we deploy the planet killers, billions will die. Valen's face remained emotionless. Good. The admiral lowered his head immediately, because everyone in the Empire understood one thing. The Emperor would rather burn the galaxy than lose a war. Meanwhile, humanity continued striking Imperial systems with terrifying speed. General Hale's fleets never stayed in one place long enough for the Empire to trap them. Human stealth ships attacked fuel depots. Supply lines vanished overnight. Imperial communications collapsed across multiple sectors. Entire Imperial governors began abandoning outer colonies in panic. The Empire was bleeding. And humanity was making sure the wound stayed open. Then Earth received the transmission. A massive Imperial hologram appeared above every human world simultaneously. Emperor Valen himself stared down at humanity. Behind him floated the 3 gigantic planet killers. People across Earth watched in silence. Valen's voice echoed coldly. Humans. Pause. You have 1 cycle to surrender. The giant superweapons glowed brighter behind him. Or your worlds will become dust. Then the transmission ended. Fear spread instantly across human colonies. For the first time since the war began, people wondered if humanity had gone too far. Inside Earth Defense Command, military leaders argued loudly. Those weapons can destroy planets. We can't defend against all 3. Maybe we should negotiate. General Hale stood silently while everyone panicked. Finally, he spoke, and the room went quiet immediately. The Empire wants us afraid. He activated a star map. 3 red markers appeared. The planet killers. Moving toward human territory. Then Hale zoomed the map outward. Hidden blue signals suddenly appeared around the Imperial fleet. Dozens of them. Human stealth beacons. Several officers looked shocked. We already tracked them. Hale nodded once. And now we kill them. Far out in deep space, the 3 planet killers traveled under heavy escort. Thousands of Imperial warships surrounded them. Commander Draven stood aboard the lead superweapon watching the stars coldly. After Vega 9 and Epsilon 3, he wanted humanity destroyed personally. An officer suddenly frowned at his scanner. Commander, I'm detecting strange energy readings nearby. Draven narrowed his eyes. Then the darkness around the fleet exploded. Hundreds of hidden human warships appeared from cloak mode at point-blank range. Imperial officers panicked instantly. Human ambush. Defensive positions. Protect the planet killers. Too late. Human attack cruisers slammed directly into the escort fleet like wolves attacking giants. Blue plasma fire ripped through Imperial destroyers. Explosions covered the battlefield within seconds. On the flagship Aegis, General Hale watched calmly, then gave one order: target the cores. Human bombers accelerated toward the planet killers. Draven roared furiously. Stop them. Imperial cannons filled space with fire. Human ships exploded one after another. But they kept coming. Closer. Closer. Then the first bomber reached its target. A blinding blue explosion tore through the lead planet killer's core. The gigantic superweapon split apart instantly. Shockwaves ripped across nearby fleets. Imperial officers screamed in panic. One planet killer. Destroyed. And the battle was only beginning. The destruction of the first planet killer shocked the entire galaxy. For centuries, Imperial superweapons had been symbols of absolute fear. Untouchable. Unstoppable. And now, humans had destroyed one in front of the entire Empire. The battle around the remaining planet killers became chaos. Human bombers weaved through burning debris while Imperial fleets fired wildly in every direction. Exploding warships lit space like dying stars. Commander Draven watched the disaster unfold with fury. Protect the remaining cores. Imperial cruisers moved to shield the giant weapons. But the humans adapted instantly. Small stealth fighters slipped beneath the escort lines and attacked weak points with deadly precision. Every human pilot seemed ready to die if it meant taking down another planet killer. And that terrified the Empire more than the weapons themselves. On the Aegis, General Hale studied the battle calmly. An officer looked nervous. We're losing ships fast. Hale nodded slightly. He expected losses. But if the planet killers survived, entire human worlds would die. Suddenly another transmission arrived from Earth intelligence. A young analyst appeared breathless. General, we found something. Hale frowned. What? The analyst hesitated, then activated a hidden Imperial file. Ancient footage filled the screen. Burning planets. Dead alien civilizations. Giant Imperial fleets surrounding helpless worlds. And standing at the center of it all, a younger Emperor Valin. Hale's eyes narrowed. Where did this come from? The analyst swallowed hard. Imperial archives. Pause. The Empire didn't build the planet killers. Silence spread across the bridge. They stole them. The footage continued. Hundreds of years earlier, another species had ruled much of the galaxy. The Arcanis. A peaceful but highly advanced civilization. They created the planet killers as mining machines capable of breaking dead planets apart for resources. But the Empire turned them into weapons. Then exterminated the Arcanis to keep the secret hidden forever. One officer whispered, "My God." Hale stared silently at the recordings. The Empire wasn't invincible because it was stronger. It was invincible because it stole the technology of dead civilizations. Then another file appeared. This one changed everything. The remaining two planet killers had a weakness. A hidden chain reaction buried deep inside their ancient power systems. If triggered correctly, both superweapons would destroy themselves. Hale looked toward the battlefield, and suddenly smiled slightly. Meanwhile, Commander Draven finally realized the humans were changing tactics. Human bombers stopped attacking randomly. Now they were targeting very specific sections of the planet killers. Engineering ports, cooling systems, power relays. Draven's eyes widened. They know about the cores. Before he could react, emergency alarms exploded across the ship. Commander, enemy boarding teams inside the lower reactor decks. Human soldiers had infiltrated the superweapon. Again, deep inside the second planet killer. Black-armored human commandos fought through Imperial corridors with brutal efficiency. Explosions shook the giant ship. Blaster fire lit narrow hallways red and blue. At the center of the assault team, Captain Lena Cross advanced toward the core chamber. Fearless. Focused. An Imperial officer shouted. Stop them. Too late. Lena reached the reactor controls and activated the overload sequence. Warning sirens screamed instantly. Across the battlefield, the second planet killer began glowing unstable red. Draven's face turned pale. No! General Hale opened a fleet-wide transmission. His voice echoed across every human ship. All units retreat immediately. Human fleets pulled back at once. Imperial commanders looked confused. Then the second planet killer exploded. A massive crimson shockwave tore through half the Imperial fleet. Destroyers vanished instantly. Cruisers broke apart like glass. Thousands of Imperial ships died in seconds. Only one planet killer remained now. And Emperor Valen finally understood something terrifying. Humanity was not fighting to survive anymore. Humanity was fighting to win. Far away on Earth, emergency sensors suddenly activated. A hidden object had entered the solar system unnoticed. Huge, ancient, and heading directly toward Earth. An officer whispered nervously, "General." Pause. The Emperor is coming himself. The object entering the solar system was larger than a city. Black metal covered its surface like armor wrapped around a mountain. Crimson engines burned behind it, lighting the darkness around Jupiter. At first, Earth's defense systems thought it was a small moon. Then the scans completed, and fear spread across every command center on Earth. It was a warship. The Emperor's warship. Inside Earth Defense Command, officers stared silently at the giant hologram rotating above the tactical table. One analyst whispered, "That thing is bigger than anything we've ever seen." General Marcus Hale studied the scans carefully. Thousands of weapons. Planetary bombardment cannons. Heavy shield systems stronger than entire fleets. And at its center, the last remaining planet killer attached directly beneath the giant vessel like a hanging blade. The Emperor had brought the Empire's strongest weapon personally. Across Earth, emergency sirens echoed through cities. Civilian evacuation ships launched from orbital stations non-stop. Families watched the skies nervously. For the first time since the war began, Earth itself had become the battlefield. On board the colossal Imperial flagship Dominion, Emperor Valen stood before massive windows overlooking Earth far below. Beautiful. Blue. Soon to be burning. Commander Draven approached carefully, still injured from the destruction of the second planet killer. "Your Majesty, human fleets are regrouping near Mars." Valen remained calm. "Good." Draven frowned slightly. "Good." Valen turned slowly toward him. His cold eyes carried absolute confidence. "The humans believe they are winning." Pause. "That makes them predictable." Meanwhile, General Hale gathered humanity's top commanders aboard the Aegis. The tactical display looked grim. Human fleets had inflicted enormous damage on the Empire, but the Emperor's flagship alone could destroy Earth. One officer asked quietly, "Can we stop that thing?" No one answered immediately. Finally Hale spoke. "Not with a direct attack." Silence. Then he zoomed into the flagship schematic stolen from Imperial databases. A small section near the ship's center glowed red. "Every massive weapon has one weakness." An officer blinked. "The core." Hale nodded once. "If we destroy the command reactor." He pointed toward the giant planet killer attached below the flagship. "The entire ship goes with it." Another officer looked shocked. "That reactor is buried under kilometers of armor." Hale's expression hardened. "Then we go through the armor." Hours later, the Battle of Earth began. Human fleets surged forward from behind Mars and the Moon simultaneously. Thousands of ships charged toward the gigantic Imperial flagship like a black tidal wave. The Empire answered with overwhelming firepower. Entire human squadrons exploded instantly under the Dominion's cannons. But humanity kept advancing. Closer. Closer. On Earth below, people watched the battle in the night sky. Bright explosions lit the heavens above the planet. Children hid beside parents. Soldiers prepared ground defenses. Everyone understood the truth. If humanity lost today, Earth would die. Inside the Dominion, Emperor Valin watched the human assault without fear. They are desperate. Then alarms suddenly screamed across the bridge. Unknown objects approaching lower hull. Draven zoomed in. Small black ships. Tiny compared to the flagship. Human boarding craft. Valin smiled slightly. Let them come. The boarding ships slammed directly into the Dominion's armored hull under heavy fire. Most were destroyed instantly, but a few survived. Among them, General Hale's ship. Deep inside the Imperial flagship, human soldiers blasted through metal corridors while Imperial guards rushed to stop them. Explosions shook the giant vessel. Blast of fire echoed through narrow hallways. Hale advanced at the front. Determined. Cold. Focused only on reaching the reactor. Because humanity had one chance left. And failure meant extinction. Suddenly, massive doors opened ahead. A giant chamber waited beyond. And standing inside it, Emperor Valin himself. Surrounded by elite Imperial guards. Waiting. The reactor chamber trembled from the battle raging outside. Red warning lights flashed across massive black walls while explosions echoed through the gigantic flagship Dominion. At the center of the chamber stood Emperor Valin. Calm. Waiting. Behind him glowed the command reactor powerful enough to destroy Earth. General Marcus Hale slowly raised his weapon. Imperial guards aimed instantly at the human soldiers beside him. For several seconds, nobody moved. Valin studied Hale carefully, then smiled faintly. So these are humanity's greatest warriors. Hale's expression remained cold. Move away from the reactor. Valin almost laughed. You came all this way believing you could kill an empire. He stepped forward slowly. I built this empire from war. Pause. You humans know nothing about sacrifice. Hale's eyes hardened. Because he had heard enough. The battle exploded instantly. Human soldiers opened fire while Imperial guards charged forward. Blast of fire lit the reactor chamber blue and crimson. Explosions shook the floor violently. Hale pushed forward through the chaos toward Valin himself. The Emperor pulled a glowing energy blade from his side. Ancient. Deadly. Their weapons collided with a violent shockwave. Outside the flagship, the Battle of Earth reached its worst point. Imperial cannons tore through human fleets relentlessly. Entire squadrons vanished every minute. But humanity refused to retreat. From Earth below, the sky looked like it was burning. Back inside the reactor chamber, Valin fought like a machine. Fast. Brutal. Precise. Hale barely blocked another strike aimed at his throat. The Emperor sneered. You are strong for a human. Then slammed Hale backward across the metal floor. Imperial guards surrounded the remaining human soldiers one by one. Everything was collapsing. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the chamber. The wall behind the reactor burst open. Captain Lena Cross and additional human commandos stormed inside firing non-stop. Imperial guards fell instantly. Valin's eyes narrowed with fury. Enough. He activated the planet killer manually. Deep beneath the flagship, the gigantic superweapon began charging. On Earth, people watched in horror as crimson light gathered beneath the enormous ship hanging above their planet. One officer screamed through comms. Planet killer firing sequence activated. Human fleets panicked instantly. If the weapon fired, Earth was finished. Hale forced himself back to his feet. Blood covered his armor. Valin looked down at him coldly. You fought well. Pause. But humanity loses today. The Emperor turned toward the reactor controls. And Hale finally made his choice. He grabbed a plasma grenade from his armor. Then charged directly at the reactor. Valin realized too late. Stop him. Imperial guards opened fire instantly. Rounds tore through Hale's armor. But he kept moving. Closer. Closer. Then Hale slammed the grenade directly into the reactor core. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the entire chamber exploded with warning alarms. The reactor became unstable instantly. Valin's calm expression finally shattered. No. The flagship shook violently. Across the battlefield, the gigantic Dominion began breaking apart from within. Human officers stared in disbelief. He did it. Inside the collapsing chamber, Hale looked toward Lena Cross. Get everyone out. She shook her head immediately. General. That's an order. The reactor behind him glowed brighter every second. There wasn't enough time for everyone to escape. Hale already knew it. Valen knew it too. The Emperor stared at the dying human with hatred and fear, because for the first time in centuries, he was losing. Hale looked directly at Valen one final time, then spoke quietly. The Empire forgot something. The reactor reached critical overload. Humans fight harder when defending home. And then, the reactor exploded. The explosion inside the Dominion tore through the gigantic flagship like a dying star. Fire erupted across its endless hull. Massive sections of the ship broke apart and drifted into space, burning. Then the impossible happened. The Emperor's flagship began falling toward Earth. Across the battlefield, both human and Imperial fleets stopped firing for a moment. Everyone stared at the giant warship collapsing above the planet. Inside Earth Defense Command, officers shouted desperately. The Dominion is losing orbit. Impact trajectory locked on Earth. Estimated casualties in the billions. Even dying, the Imperial flagship could still destroy humanity. Captain Lena Cross barely escaped aboard a damaged shuttle with the surviving commandos. Behind them, the reactor explosion spread deeper into the ship every second. She looked back toward the collapsing vessel, toward the chamber where General Hale stayed behind. Her voice broke quietly. Goodbye, sir. Inside the burning throne chamber, Emperor Valen struggled to stand among flames and collapsing metal. The reactor blast had destroyed half the chamber. Smoke filled the air, and across from him, Marcus Hale still stood, barely alive, armor shattered, blood covering his face, but standing. Valen stared at him in disbelief. Why? He coughed painfully. Why would you sacrifice yourself for one world? Hale looked toward Earth glowing beneath the broken ship, then answered softly, because it's our world. Outside, human fleets realized there was only one way to stop the crashing flagship. Destroy it completely before it reached Earth. But the Dominion was enormous. Even damaged, its armor could survive most attacks. An officer whispered, "We don't have enough firepower." Then Captain Lena Cross stepped forward aboard the Aegis. Her eyes filled with tears. "Yes, we do." She opened a fleet-wide transmission across every human ship. All remaining fleets. Pause. Target the Dominion. One commander looked shocked. At this range we'll be caught in the blast. Lena's expression hardened. Earth comes first. Silence spread across human channels. Then one by one, human captains answered. Acknowledged. Weapons ready. For Earth. Thousands of warships turned toward the falling Imperial flagship. Inside the wrecked chamber, Valen finally understood. The humans were willing to die to protect each other. That was why the Empire could never truly defeat them. Not because humans were stronger, but because they refused to abandon home. The Emperor laughed weakly, almost sadly. Perhaps. He looked at Hale. I underestimated humanity. Hale smiled faintly. Yeah. Then the first human attack wave hit. Outside, thousands of human warships unleashed everything they had. Blue plasma beams, missile storms, railgun fire. The darkness around Earth became pure light. The Dominion cracked apart under the assault. Huge explosions ripped through its core. Then finally, the giant flagship shattered completely. A massive fireball erupted high above Earth. The shockwave lit half the planet's sky gold. Burning debris rained harmlessly into the oceans below. Earth survived. The remaining Imperial fleets fell silent. Their emperor was dead. Their superweapons destroyed. Their invincible empire broken. One by one, Imperial ships powered down their weapons and surrendered. The Galactic Empire had finally lost a war. Months later, the galaxy changed forever. Worlds once controlled by the Empire became free. Human alliances spread across the stars. And Earth became known throughout the galaxy as the world that stood against impossible odds. And won. At the center of New Vega City stood a giant monument to Marcus Hale. Beneath it were written the words every child in the galaxy would one day learn. The Galactic Empire won every war, until humans fought back. The end. If you enjoyed this epic sci-fi adventure, subscribe for more galactic wars, powerful human stories, and legendary battles among the stars.